So by now you'll be familiar with the 10% list, which is a bunch of jobs that we have left to do on the car that are nearly complete, but not quite. There's obviously a lot more to do that are nowhere near finished, but this is the 10% list, and it's looking a little bit worse for wear with all of the grime that's accumulated on it. So in finest Blue Peter tradition, here's one I remade earlier. So this is all of the jobs off there, plus a few from this 2022 list that I made up last year and never really paid any attention to, because there's a lot of stuff that we just didn't do that we could have done and put off for various reasons. So where are we at with this particular list? Well, the air filter and pipes, we have the air filter, we need some pipes, they're on their way, they should be coming in the next couple of episodes. The washer jets, you'll remember I put the TT ones in, I'm going to redo those slightly differently with some taller ones from one of the kit car builders, one of their eBay shops. The brake hoses we don't need right now, we'll ignore that. The bonnet rubbers are nearly finished, need to work out some plan for a little rubber bonnet stop. The light cabling is kind of routed, but it's not finished up yet. The expansion tank pipe, again, we have the pipe to fill the system, but we need to take the engine out in order to do it so we can get to where the brackets need to be. The O2 bungs, we have the fittings now. We just need to drill into our lovely, pristine looking exhaust, which I'm not really looking forward to. The radiator return pipe is the one thing on the list that I do not want to do. We have to drill a hole that goes through the front of our scoop where the radiator is, and that's going to be terrible because we need to kind of guess the angle that this pipe needs to go at and then cut an oblong hole on a slant that goes through, and it's going to be awful. We need to refit the intercooler still and put some reflectors on, which I think are actually up here somewhere. Yes. They're on the floor now, and once we get those on, we can cross a few more bits off. And there are a few other bits and pieces that we really want to do as well, whilst the engine's out doing a couple of these, like the rear window. We've ordered some parts to be able to do that, so we can close in the firewall behind where the seats are and get that done. And you can probably see there's a few more bits up on this list, which are also in progress. So not quite this list yet, but hopefully they won't make it on because we'll actually finish things.
With that out of the way, it's time to get back to working on the actual car itself. Now, keen-eyed viewers will no doubt have seen this rod that we've put across the outlet duct on the bonnet. Now, what we noticed when we first made the duct was that the opening in the bonnet seemed really quite large. Like, when we had the bonnet closed and we're looking around it, it just seemed like this big, like, maw in the top of the thing, and it looked kind of goofy. So we thought for a while that we wanted to close it up a little and just put another skin here and just reduce the size of the outlet vent a little. We just haven't quite got around to actually doing it yet. So we've been going backward and forward a little bit for quite a while on how big the opening should be, like, you know, should we have the back of it here or, you know, further back or anything. We did work out the further back it goes, the smaller the opening is, because this is tapering up to meet it. And we've gone with, well, this as it is now is about half of the frontal area of the radiator, which is probably about as small as we want to go. The radiator itself is a big flow restriction, so obviously we don't need to be that big. So this feels like a good middle ground, and it also gets us a fairly nice rake on the front of it, which we think should look pretty good once it's all skinned over. So we've got a little piece of steel here that we're going to clamp up in place, give or take there, clamp it on, cut some of the excess off, bend it round in situ, and just see how it all goes, figuring out as we go along. Bloody goggles.
Well, we finished the scoop up last night, as you probably saw, and we are putting a little bit of Bondo on it just to try and smooth it out. You've seen us do that a lot, so we're going to skip that, let it dry, and move on to something else and show you the finished product, because frankly it looks a little bit of a mess at the moment. Now, this is the washer jet bracket that I made some time ago, and this bolts onto the firewall and under the this bolt on the bracket for the windscreen wiper motors. So this has to be removable so we can get the tank out. If you haven't seen the video where I made this and did some other bits, you can go back and watch that. I'll try and remember and put a little card up in the top corner. And where this sits is a little bit close. I'm pretty sure these jets will work and will clear all the way back to hit the windscreen. But these jets, which are from one of the eBay kit car shops, are much taller, and we can sit these much, much closer up here. So as you can see, I've drilled a couple of holes. Now they don't quite sit that high, but with this bolted in, they will sit and give us much more freedom over where we actually point the jets, and we're not going to be limited by potentially hitting this when we try to hit somewhere in the middle of the screen with this jet over here. So we'll pop these two out and install these and then bolt this back on the car. One quick coat of lacquer and paint later, and this is ready to go back on. Now, these just mount on with a screw thread on the bottom, and they have a feed tube right through the middle of the nut up into the jets. Now, the tubing that I salvaged from the TT and the A3 has gone walkabout, but it is quite old, so we might actually just get some new stuff and a new splitter, because if we install all of this and it splits, it's just going to be a nightmare. So I think new stuff is probably the way to go for the pennies it will probably cost. So in the meantime, this gets back installed under here, and I'm willing to bet that I actually put away all of the nuts and bolts last night. Please hold. So this tucks in underneath this bracket here, and then there is a little bracket that goes through on this side, which just has a bolt in. Now this still looks very, very close at the moment for the angle on the jets. So that's the jets installed on the panel. You can see we didn't actually cover in any of the metalwork from the previous ones. Didn't see the point. We might actually cut a little bit more out. We could have feasibly made this a little bit shorter, but actually we still need to mount it at the very front edge here, so we'd still have to have some sort of framework right out at the front of the bracket. So we might as well leave it as it is and stop making extra work for ourselves. I know I'm as surprised as you are. So the angle from the jets itself actually comes out down here, which is perfectly reasonable to hit this corner, and obviously these jets pivot as well. So as long as this nozzle at some angle gets passed over this lip, and again this one at the moment comes down here, but it will pivot further up. So we should have plenty of adjustment in the angle on these jets to hit anywhere we need on the windscreen. So that's another thing done apart from the piping, which we're going to have to go out and buy.
Now that the washer jets are done and our Bondo's set on this, we're pretty much done as far as like the rough blend, getting it all into the metal quite nicely. We do still have some more finishing work to do. Unfortunately, the heavens opened a couple hours earlier than we were expecting, so we've hastily thrown some primer over it just to try and keep the worst of the water out of the Bondo, because we found that it tends to sort of blister apart and not really set properly. So we've just got a little bit of primer on. So I'm going to close this down now and you can get a feel for the shape. As I said, still not perfect, but it is coming together pretty well. Let's just bring that down. Please excuse the tarp, trying to protect the rest of the car from the elements. So yeah, here it is, the nearly finished product. It's a much, much nicer line. It's a much less ridiculous size in the front of it. You won't be able to tell from here, but from anywhere sort of behind the center line of the car, it used to look like this huge maw, and it's a lot more sensible now. I think we've come up with a pretty good curve, so it all blends together pretty good. From lower down, which in fairness, not many people other than children are going to see it from, you can really see this angle and the curvature that we've put into it. I think it's a really nice sort of profile there now, so pretty happy with how it's all turned out. One day, I will stop being surprised that we can occasionally turn out good bits of bodywork.
Underneath the new scoop panel, we've put in the rest of the rubber edging. Now, we had to wait to do that because this whole area across the bottom of the bonnet was going to get very warm when we welded that in, so I didn't want to glue this on, melt the rubber, and then just breathe that in. Don't breathe this. On the other side, on the lower part, I had to remove this thick edging from the other side. It was actually interfering with the closing of the bonnet, and it wouldn't go down and fit as flush as we wanted. So on that side, it just has the regular thin trim without the D section on it. This side has the full thing. And there is a little bit of adjustment left in the hinges so we can bring it across this way slightly, which will help that a little bit more. Maybe we could pop that one off and get some smaller D trim to fit on that side. Unfortunately, this is so late since this was built and this was built, there is no way we are going to even that up. It's just not happening. So fixing it with some rubber trim is definitely the way forward. Around the edge, I've actually used a little bit of carpet adhesive, particularly on this one, so that it doesn't fall off, because the rubber is a little bit wider than the material. It's designed to go up to 3mm, as we said before, so now when this goes down, it sits nicely in and when it comes back off, it doesn't get dragged back up by this cross member and fall off. So that's really useful up there, and it's only been dabbed on a little bit, so it should be fairly easy to pull off if we do need to replace the one on that side, but the rest of them are all good. Thanks very much for watching. If you'd like to support us in our endeavour of buying lots and lots of rubber trim from eBay, you can support us by buying things at shop.pedalbox.show. You can buy merch like the hat that I'm not wearing, but Chris was earlier in this episode. We've also got t-shirts and hoodies and more there. You can also support us on Patreon from as little as $1 a month. That also gets you discount in the merch store and early access to the videos, along with a few other benefits as well. If you haven't already, don't forget to join our Discord community. The link is in the description below, and hopefully we'll see you next time.